Hello and welcome to Ep.4 of Hybrid Fitness Report. I'm Paul Reynolds.
I'm Jude Reynolds.
This week I have a bone to pick with a writer from The Guardian who was writing about Hyrox. Then we were going to have an introduction to the sport of Deadly Dozen, but we're delaying that a couple of weeks as we're hoping to talk to the founder, Jay Curtis, first. So instead, this week we're going to talk about the event of DEKA, the three main variations of the event, the difference between the DEKA Strong, the DEKA Mile, and the DEKA Fit. And just to let you know, in case we get interrupted by loud boats or by the warned alligators and snakes, I'm currently at Disney sitting out the back of a resort hotel hoping to get this done.
Is that the Floridian in the background? What's that
No,
one?
that's the Polynesian. I'm at the Floridian,
Polynesian.
but I'm sitting on the steps out the back of one of the buildings.
Yeah, it's actually not a green screen. If you're watching the video, it is not a green screen. It's kind of cool.
No, this is me perched awkwardly next to somebody's balcony,
Yeah.
so they can listen in and enjoy tremendously the recording of this week's podcast. So this week's first section, and looking at the week in review, I was sent this article from The Guardian, written by their consumer affairs correspondent, which strikes me as a slightly odd person to do a review of fitness events. So it is very much from the angle of someone looking at what people are doing and what they're spending money on. But yeah, it's an introduction to Hyrox and hybrid fitness sports. And one paragraph says, experts say the boom is driven by younger generations seeking connection as much as competition. Women are entering events once dominated men, while more over 45s are signing up. Do you think the hybrid fitness events boom is being driven by you lot or my lot?
I don't know. I feel like sports is, for obvious reasons, dominated by younger people, but I think this has definitely exposed a lot of the quote unquote older people to fitness, because a lot of the hybrid fitness events that have come out are what you call inclusive. So Hyrox, like all of them you can name, essentially are marketing themselves as inclusive, which yes, gets them more money, but also too is just the reason that people of the older generation can partake in it, because none of the movements are CrossFit-esque that requires years of skill development in order to do it. You have to have a very low baseline of fitness to get round in a reasonable time. And I think that's the draw. That's the draw for the older generation with these things.
And even with CrossFit, I kind of feel like it brought in a lot of, and I might say older, I don't mean as old as me necessarily, but like 30s and 40s people coming out the back end of competitive team sports perhaps, and wanted to do something else to keep moving and keep fit and keep strong. I'd be surprised if that were the case, although I guess if Hyrox turns more into what it wants to be, which is a serious sport, not just an inclusive fitness event, then it will become more and more dominated by younger people in terms of numbers. And the founders have talked quite openly about hoping that people start training for Hyrox from their early teens, rather than just kind of getting fit and then jumping into Hyrox when they're older.
And I think on that, there's a conversation I had with one of the members at my gym that I didn't tell you about. So she's recently gotten a job in Hyrox. We were discussing this exact topic, and I was saying how I think in order to maintain their inclusivity whilst also push for the higher elite standard that they're looking for, I think creating more of a disparity between the O and the open division could be a possible solution for that. Maybe in the weights, definitely in the judging, just make it so that when you sign up for pro, you're going to be held to this exact standard no matter who you are, because that is the quote unquote pro division. And the inclusive division, which obviously wouldn't be called that, the open division would have the volunteer judges, the ones that are still going to hold you to a standard but not nearly as severe of one, and obviously the weights are lower. So I think that could be a possible way around to navigate that.
As long as that doesn't mean we decide that any kind of depth of squat is a squat. I mean, you still got flags, you still got the kind of the relevance of placing first, second, or third. So I wouldn't want it to become lax. But as you say, you do need seriously good judges.
They do still have to complete a wall ball for it to count as a wall ball, yeah. I'm just thinking more on like the stations like the burpees and the sled pull, where like if you step 1 millimeter on the line in pro division, you're getting called for it, whereas in the open, maybe not, stuff like that.
I definitely need some slack cut for me on that. So the article goes on, one such discipline is Hyrox, a blood-pumping sequence of exercising involving an 8-kilometer run with a workout such as rowing, pushing a sled, or throwing a ball to be carried out after every kilometer, which obviously doesn't exactly picture what you're really doing.
I think if you listen to I think if you listen to our previous episode, we did a sort of a rundown on what Hyrox is, and I didn't explain it perfectly, but I explained it a whole lot better than that article, I feel, did.
Yeah. It says that the popularity hints at a universal appeal, and this is where my bone to pick comes in. But the cost of becoming a Hyrox athlete is not cheap. A race typically costs more than £100, which it doesn't, but when you put in travel, it might do. Critics say it makes the sport accessible mainly to those with disposable income. Well, I don't know who these critics are. I mean, it's clear they've been told to mention Hyrox and one or two other things and say, give us something negative about it. And everyone's always been allowed to throw wall balls. Everyone has always been allowed to push and pull sleds and run round tracks. No one's ever prevented anyone from doing that. So the barrier to entry for that is exactly the same as what it always was. What Hyrox is saying is not, here's something you've not done before and here's an expensive barrier to entry. They said you can do what you've always done in your gym or outside your gym. And by the way, if you'd like to compete doing it, we'll hire out a venue. We'll bring in loads of judges. We'll bring in a ton of kit so that you can do it in a place with thousands of other people and make it a competitive environment. So I think it's utterly absurd to use that as some kind of a criticism. This isn't a public service. It's a company that thought, hey, there's a demand for this kind of thing. That's slightly ridiculous. Anyway, I didn't like that bit.
So this is now the following day, and we'll pick up roughly where we left off, which was the Guardian article about the hybrid fitness craze, as it called it. Near the end of the article, it queries, are everyday bodies, and I quote, are everyday bodies ready to cope with the demands of athlete-style competitions? Ed Thompson, who owns Instant Physio, says the hybrid fitness craze is great for participation, but it does create the perfect conditions for overuse injuries, which seems to me a little bit like saying, well, here's something that's intrinsically healthy. Hybrid fitness improves your fitness in a whole variety of ways. It's not just strength. It's not just endurance. It's not just flexibility. It's all of that. And here we have someone saying, yeah, it's great, but if you race, then it's classic conditions for overuse, which seems to be doing down something that's fundamentally good, isn't it?
Yeah, it reminds me of those, not that I have a PhD or anything, but it reminds me of those doctors that tell you, when you've got a little niggle that, you need to stop exercising, you need to stop going to the gym. And the gym that I work with, we get so many of those people that come in and so many members that have been, oh yeah, I went to see my doctor. Either he's never told me I'd walk again, and I ran a marathon last month, or he's told me not to do anything and he's come in and a month later they feel amazing. It just reminds me of that type of sort of mentality.
And I guess it is a tricky thing at times, getting the right balance between your brain does tend to know what the right thing is. And if it says don't do something because it hurts, it's often correct. With, as you say, this kind of almost mania for being careful about everything. I think for a lot of people who are getting into Hyrox, and I would absolutely include myself in this, is the reason I'm getting fitter is because there's an opportunity to compete. Now, it's like when I was doing half marathons. When I say compete, it's big quotes around it, because I'm talking about, can I finish 550th rather than 600th? It's not because I have delusions of meddling or anything. But yeah, it just seems to be discouraging people from doing something that actually is a fundamentally good idea.
Yeah. I mean, you get out of bed and you run the risk of getting run over than if you stay in bed. But I mean, there are so many parallels we could draw between, the more you do hybrid sports, the more you could get injured. The more you drive a car, the more you can crash. Right. But at the end of the day, both of them are needed in life. Like you're going to exercise, you're going to drive a car. Right. Sometimes bad things can happen, but that's life.
Okay, so we are now on take 3 of episode 4 of the podcast, trying again on Tuesday lunchtime for me. We've got as far down our running order, Jude, as a weekend workout. So what have you been up to this week?
Yeah. So this week has introduced week number 2 of strength running, which is fast paces on an incline. I've lived in Cayman for 12 years of my life, and it is extremely flat. So there was never sort of any hill training, anything like that. I never did incline on a treadmill, but recently I've been doing a lot of incline running, usually once a week and usually at around 10k pace feel. So I've been doing a lot of that. Threshold on the ergs as normal, threshold flat running as normal. Not so much outside just because of work and sort of how my workouts sort of pan out in that I need the equipment at the gym. So a lot of it is taking me inside the gym. So I haven't had the chance to do a lot on the track or on the road. So a lot of treadmill stuff, a lot of strength work as normal, but only 2-3 times a week, which is still weird to get used to after having done bodybuilder style training for like the year and a half leading up to it. And the workout of the week was also done this week. So yeah, what about you? What did yours look like?
No strength training for me this week. I'm still very much in an on-ramp to some Hyrox specific training. So there's a lot of long works, a lot of long erg work, some long running, but lots of zone 2 stuff. And I'm still getting used to what the day after a long zone 2 feels like, because most of my running training back in the days of marathons and half marathons, my easy runs were zone 3 and my long runs were zone 3 getting into 4 by the end. And the day after any run of any significance at all, even like as little as 5 miles, I'll be feeling fairly wrecked the day after. But I'm doing these like an hour and a quarter zone 2 efforts across a variety of machines, and I've been quite tired afterwards, but really I feel fine afterwards. And the day after I'm waiting for something to hit or get super sore, and there's just nothing happening, which is really weird. Part of it is my slow stuff is slower. I mean, heart rate is lower, not just I'm getting older. Part of it is the stretches I started doing a couple of years ago, which kind of prior to like last year's round of getting ready for my first Hyrox event.
A lot of them back focused.
Entirely back focused. Right. And this week I've also just started doing some mobility work, and I'm starting core work as well.
Because you were saying how when you started doing those, they completely transformed how your sessions felt. Like you were looser, the DOMs weren't so bad. You said it completely transformed how you felt doing them.
It's massive. It's absolutely massive. And I just didn't really know anything about them. And so I'd feel bad enough after a good interval running. You know, if I'm doing intervals for 6 miles, for example, it might be 2 days before I can do anything really at all. So I wasn't getting fitter very effective or very efficiently. So it's made a massive difference. It's not even the not hurting myself, it's being afraid of hurting myself that's just less, because I just feel a lot better.
Yeah, that's where I think a lot of people fall down, is they wait to get injured, and that's when they start doing their stretching, like, oh, this hurts, so I should have been doing more of this. Whereas if you catch that before the injury, you can save yourself months and months and months. For the amount of time you get injured throughout your life because, oh, I didn't do this, so I'm going to do this. Do this preemptively. Don't do it reactively. Start doing your mobility now. Save you months and months of progress that you just won't have to sort of build up to after injury. Just save that step entirely and just start doing it now.
I think I'm the poster man for post-emptive stretching. Yes. I think I waited for about 28 years after it would have been a good idea before I started stretching. I go, oh, this really works. But I think more than ever now, especially kind of paying more attention to the fitness online, in media, in books and TV, and hearing more and more top athletes talk about what really made the difference for them was stretching. You know, top CrossFit athletes, top Hyroxers talking about how important 10, 20, 30 minutes of stretching is. And I always thought, I haven't got time for that. It's like, well, I don't have time not to. Actually, if you want to not be injured as much, and if you want to be able to push yourself more, and if you want to not feel like trash the day after a hard workout, there's kind of no way around it, especially at my age. So, I mean, even at your age, but especially at my age.
Yeah, just to touch on that, like it's not like before a ski erg workout, go and do some arm crossover stretches or go and do some, quad stretches. Look at what your workout is. Look at the muscles that are going to be engaged for most of the time and work through those movement patterns. So if you're going to be doing burpee broad jumps, opening up the hips, lengthening the quads, stretching the hamstrings. If you're on the ski erg as well, that's the posterior chain you need to look at. So the back of your body, your calves, your hamstrings, your lower back. Look at what you're going to be doing during the workout and then work off of that, work through those ranges of motion, work through those planes of movement, and do that in your warm-up. Don't just throw some stretches together and say, hey, I did 10 minutes of stretching, because that could be useless if you don't look at what you're actually going to be doing.
I just do back stuff.
I mean, whatever works.
Rest of me can deal with it. If my back's warmed up, I'm happy. Although you mentioned the posterior chain, which sounds like a bad thing, but when I did my mobility test yesterday, it turns out that my posterior chain is completely hopeless and doesn't do anything. One of the tests that you'll be familiar with is the one where you try and do squats with your arms in the air in front of a wall and try not to touch the wall. So it's how close can you get to a wall while going into a squat position with your arms out and then standing up from the squat without touching the wall. I had to be practicing
a lot more difficult than you think. It's really, really tough.
Well, yeah, you're not talking to me when you say a lot more difficult than you think, because it sounds difficult to me. I was in a different postcode before I could stand up without touching the wall. So on all the priorities on the app that I've got, it says posterior chain, posterior chain, posterior chains. Apparently the
hamstrings, glutes, calves,
hips,
lower back, hips.
Does it count hips? My chiropractor always thought I had terrible hips.
Not really.
Okay. They're terrible as well, but no, separate issue.
Moving on from that.
Yeah.
Speaking of the weekend workouts. The wow from this week is a 500-meter row for time. Short, simple, painful.
That sums it up neatly. Yep. Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize for having completely missed one last week. So last week we spoke about the previous week's wow, and then talked about that for so long and forgot to mention this week's wow. So we've had a wow this week. I don't know how
neither of us picked up on that. Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, set up your screen. So if you're doing it, obviously, preferably you'd be doing it on a C2 machine. So you can set it up. So you'd go to select workout, you'd go to select distance, you'd set it to 500 meters, and then you'd go just so that you get the 100 meter by 100 meter breakdown. Because otherwise, if you just do it from scratch, you don't get any data. So you want to see if you fall off, or if you do fall off, when you fall off. You could just see your 100 meter by 100 meter pace, which I think is super useful. But I did mine 5 minutes after a hard running threshold workouts. Is it an excuse? Maybe. Is it a good excuse? I think so. So I did it in 124.5, which was, I think, almost exactly what I got at the very start of when I started rowing. Oh, clear fatigue there, and not what I could do, but I'm obviously not where I was, so I'm not saying I'd get any sub 120s anymore. But yeah, I did settle on the...
What's your lifetime PB for when you were rowing?
I think it was just under, I think it was 121.2, 121.1, I think. We only ever did, I think, 2 500-meter tests. It wasn't something that we really focused on. Bear in mind, I did only do rowing for 8 months, so it wasn't like I had this whole career in it, and we only did 2 500-meter tests. But yeah, 124.5. You literally came in the door from doing it. So
yeah, I'm still sticking. Well, just to say, I've been rowing off and on for 20 years now, since my early 30s, although I think about 14 years of that, I didn't do it because of various back injuries. So it's kind of either end. So back in my early 30s, 20 years ago, I did a 133.7. Then 17 years ago, I did a 137.7. And my best since turning 38, 13 years ago, was last year when I did a 142.7. Just now, I did a 138.8.
Whoa, so you broke 140.
I broke 140. So last night I did a 140.6. And I just thought that was just pants. I've got if I can do a 140.6 today, I'll try and shoot for sub 140. And then I just ended up with a bit more than I thought. So I was very happy with that.
Did you go out hot and hang on, or did you kind of fade? Or
I went out hot and hung on. I thought I'd just try and hang out just under 140, but I didn't want to get above 140 because I wouldn't have time to come on. I'd have to blitz it so hard, and I get the last 40% of that row. I'm struggling for oxygen, so I knew I couldn't afford to properly negative split it. But then I ended up pulling 139s, and I was at low 139, so I thought I could probably creep under that. So I did. But yeah, I was definitely hanging on by the end. And my strokes got
that's really good.
A lot slower and harder towards the end. I don't know if that's standard fall off a
usually
cliff type form.
Usually you'd want to shorten up on your strokes when you get more tired than more than lengthen. So
really?
Yeah.
So less speed.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to shorten up a little bit and sort of increase your cadence as you get more tired.
I thought maybe try the opposite of that, see if that works.
Okay. So yeah, quite a fun, short, quick workout. So give that a try. Maybe not 5 minutes after a threshold session. Try do it fresh. Do it on maybe a day that you're just doing weights or you're not doing much, and let us know how you do.
Just to ask a question on that, in terms of getting your best time, it's not something I was familiar with before this year, but is it a good idea to try and get your heart rate up before you start that? You said something to me before about, why some of the warm-ups are actually quite vigorous. And I see people warming up and I think you're getting properly knackered before you start. Whereas you said to me before, actually, it's quite important to have your heart rate fairly elevated before doing something intense. What's that about?
Yeah. Biologically, we can sort of get onto it at maybe a more in-depth on a different stage. We have like a warm-up section maybe, but just on the surface level, you don't want to shock your body. Your body doesn't respond well when you shock it, and so you want it to know what's about to happen. So before my threshold workouts, I'll be in England, by the way, not even Cayman. In England, I'll be usually dripping a bit of sweat before I even start my running workout, if it's like a more intense one. So you just basically want to let the body know you're about to go through something quite difficult, because then it won't sort of kick your ass when you try and do it.
Okay. My body kicks my ass all the time.
There's the
in theory,
surface level explanation.
Well, no, and it makes sense.
And
Yeah.
what that'll do is it'll prevent your heart rate from having a really steep spike. And so it'll gradually increase to your sort of peak heart rate for that area that you're going to maintain. So with that warm up, the heart rate will go up, 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 and then it'll sort of level out as you get to that higher intensity. Whereas if you do it from nothing, it'll spike, and then your body, like I said, will not respond well to something like that. So you just want gradual increase in your BPM, beats per minute.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Our next and main feature for this week is an introduction to a hybrid fitness sport. So last time out, we did Hyrox, and this time we're going to take a look at DEKA. Now, DEKA's not just one thing, is it, Jude? What are the different elements of the sport known as DEKA?
So now it's actually branched out more than when I got into it. So now there's something called the DEKA Atlas, which I don't even know fully what that is. There's a DEKA Ultra, there's DEKA Ruck, but the three main ones, the trifecta they call it, are the Strong, the Mile, and the Fit. The Fit has more running, the Mile has a little bit of running, but less, and the Strong has no running. So it is the Fit is a similar concept to Hyrox, where you have a run, a station run, and you repeat that process. With the Mile, it's the same. You just have even less running. And then with the Strong, you just have station, 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 station. With all three, there are 10 stations. With the Mile and the Fit, there are 10 runs. And then obviously the Strong, as I said, just stations. So there's just 10 of them. The Fit is, I'd say, the most popular one. That's what I competed in last year. It's 10 runs, with each one being 500 meters. In between each run, you have a station. Station number 1 are the RAM alternating reverse lunges, which is essentially a long 25 kg foam roller that's hollow, so you can put your hands inside of it. You then hoist it onto your back and you perform reverse lunges on the spot with those. You've got 30 reps for station 1. Station 2 is then a 500 meter row, so half the distance of Hyrox, meaning usually you'd see quicker paces. So you see people who are holding maybe high 140s in Hyrox, then going to low 140s, so just a little bit of a quicker station there. Then you have 20 box jump or step overs at 24 inches. So that's where you either hop or jump over the box. You have to get to the other side. 20 reps in total. With this one, it is hugely taxing to do the jump overs. You'll see a lot of the people who know what they're doing step overs. That's the highly recommended way in which you do these. Then you have 25 med ball sit-ups, which is where you hold one, sit down into the bottom of a sit-up position and throw it or touch it against the target in front of you. The zone 5 is 500 meter ski erg. So again, half the distance of Hyrox, 500 meters on the ski erg. Again, maintaining just a little bit quicker than Hyrox pace for that one. Zone 6 is 100 meters farmer's carry, 100 meter farmer's carry with dumbbells. These ones though are the same as the open weight for the men. So it's half the distance as it is in Hyrox, and it's the open weight, which is 24 kilograms, I believe.
Each.
And again, each, yes, in the form of, like I said, dumbbells, not kettlebells. So the grip usually is a little bit easier. So again, quite a quick station there. And then the one that they call the hardest station, or the hardest station in DEKA, is the air bike. So you've got 25 calories on an air bike. Now, what is a calorie? I don't know. I also don't know anyone that does know. It's very, very complex unit that really doesn't have a lot of measurability. There's a word for measurability. What's the synonym?
That'll do. I think that's a word.
That measurability, yeah. So the row and the ski are both done on ergs, where we've spoken about before. The reward of going really hard in these machines is quite low, but with this one, it's seen to be more beneficial than the ski and the row. So 10 to 15 seconds of a really, really hard effort on the assault bike can usually equate to calories racking up a lot quicker than meters on a row or a ski, for example, if you gunned it for 10 to 15 seconds. So this station is where it's really hard to pace, because at the same time you want to manage your effort, but also at the same time you want to make sure that you're finishing it as quickly as possible, maybe adding that 10 to 15 second sprint on, but then being able to carry on the run after. So that's station 7. Station number 8 are dead ball wall overs. You got 20 of these. This is where you pick up a med ball from the floor. You then hoist it up over a wall, go to the other side and repeat. You've got 20 reps here of a 60-pound ball. I think that's 30-ish kg, 27 point something kg with that one. So this one is a station where you can really sort of get your breath back, and where it really advantages taller and stronger athletes, because they'll have to put a lot less effort in. So sort of a station where I look to sort of catch my breath but continue sort of working through it, chipping through those 20 reps. You then have a 100 meter tank push-pull. Now, what's the resistance of this? What's the weight? No idea. It works on magnetic resistance, and so I've heard things where...
Completely unlike the Hyrox one, this one's on wheels.
Yeah. So the form is similar, as in it's like a sled-shaped object with some weights on it, but it works with magnetic resistance. So some say the harder you push it, the more it resists. There's usually not much room here to catch up with someone if you're behind. It's usually everyone's going at the same pace. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy. It really, really burns your quads because you got 50 meters of pushing it. You then, on the way back, have 50 meters of pulling it, which they have handles attached for. Now, if you've ever done sled drags, you'll know how much pulling a sled can really tax your quads. So this one really blows up your legs and really isn't a lot of time to be gained here. So if you want to sort of get someone in this, you got to either do it on the assault bike or you got to do it on the Station 10, which are your 20 RAM burpees with 20 kg. So these are where you hold that long foam roller we talked about, bring your chest to it in a prone position, so you lie on top of it or bounce off of it and then press it overhead. So it's a burpee but with a RAM in your hand. So chest to floor on top of the RAM, you then hoist it up and press it straight overhead. The rules have changed recently as to whether or not you have to fully extend at the top or just have it over your head, but I think now recently they changed it where you have to fully lock out your elbows at the top, whereas before you could have just had it over. So this is a full lockout 20 RAM burpees to finish.
Which is, I guess, similar to wall balls and Hyrox, is where a lot of change in places can happen because it's such a taxing station. Even though it's not as long as the 100 wall balls, it's still pretty brutal.
Even though it's 20 reps, if someone blows up after their final run, you can really make up some time here. So a good pace would be doing about 1 every 3-ish seconds. So if someone sort of breaks up the movement, instead of being really smooth with the press out at the top, if they're having to sort of clean it up to their shoulders, then dip and press, that's going to waste seconds and seconds, and sometimes even adds up to a minute difference between you and someone who's sort of saved enough for the end there.
So your Hyrox PB is 59:30. What's your DEKA PB? I mean, you've only done it twice, but...
Well, the 59:30 was my second pro solo race, and I've only ever done 2 DEKA races, and the second one being at World Championships, where I got 32:03. So that's currently my best.
So that's your rough equivalent. I mean, are most people going to look at roughly twice the time for Hyrox as a DEKA? Is that what most of us are going to be doing? Is that a usual ratio?
Yeah.
I have to tell.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, it's ish. Like, yeah, obviously not linear, but yeah, I'd say that's a safe sort of ballpark.
So Hyrox is huge in the UK and pretty big in the US, right? It's the other way around in DEKA, isn't it?
Yeah, it's massive in the US, pretty big in Spain, but not a lot of it at all in the UK or anywhere else in Europe other than Spain, weirdly. I couldn't put my finger on why. Do you have any idea why it would be so big there and not here?
It originated obviously in the States, whereas Hyrox originated in Europe. So I think there are only a couple of main DEKA Fit events. Obviously, you got various other aspects of DEKA, but the DEKA Fit events, the one this weekend that you've got coming up, that's just the second in the whole year, isn't it?
Yeah, there's quite a few mile and strong events put on because a lot of gyms are now becoming affiliates, and there are quite a few that I wanted to go to but couldn't just because of time restraints. So there's a few strong and mile events, but only, as far as I'm aware, 2 official DEKA Fit events this calendar year in the UK so far.
Right, and so the one coming up this weekend is in Derby, which you'll be going to. How has this affected your training? Because obviously generally speaking, you're Hyrox specific, but with an overall hybrid fitness goal. How has that changed in the last few weeks or months looking at the upcoming DEKA event?
How has my training changed, and how would you optimize one's training to change? Are different questions. For me, it's not changed much. I'm in 2 days into a taper, but as opposed to tapering for it specifically, regarding my training, not much. I've added some DEKA specific skill work into some of my EMOMs. For example, I've added some box step overs recently. I've added some burpees with weights in weird ways that I haven't done before. I've been doing more devil's press. But again, these are only small additions at the end of workouts in the past week or maybe 2. So I haven't really adapted my training for it at all, to be honest with you. But yeah, 2 days into a taper, I am tapering for it. But I've gotten a bunch of different events booked on this Hyrox off season that I'm gonna sort of train for, but my training is all wired and geared towards June 2026 Hyrox World Championships. Nothing really is going to divert my attention too far from that.
Right. And so, what are you hoping to get out of this weekend? I mean, this is the last European qualifier for December's World Championship. So presumably that's A or the big friends. What does it take to get into the Worlds from this event on Saturday?
Well, I signed up to the Elite Division. So Elite Division is very similar to Hyrox, where I believe it's the 15 best times recorded this DEKA season qualify for the Elite Division, which is my A goal. I think looking at the leaderboards to do that, I need something better than 31:40, so around that area.
So you need to beat your PB by almost a minute.
No, I need to beat it by about 20 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so my A goal is to qualify for the elites. My B goal would be to try and get under 31 minutes. Now, is there any sort of meaning attached to that goal? No, not really. I just think I improved by over 2 minutes from my first to my second attempt, and now I'm fitter than I've ever been now, and so I'm just thinking, could I take 60 seconds off by maybe improving my efficiency by 2 seconds per station and my running being a lot better? Yes, I think it's definitely possible. So I think B goal being 31 minutes, under 31 minutes, and if all else fails, I should hopefully still get a qualifying time for my age group, which would then put me in a place to defend my title, I guess, in December.
You don't need to put title in air quotes. Would put you in a position to defend your world age group championship winning performance from last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, there are worse things to do. I would know. I do a lot of them. But no, that would be cool. So if you achieve a time sufficient to make it for the elite final, you will be ineligible for your age group final, or you just would pick one?
Yeah.
How does that work?
No, you couldn't race both. So I'd go there, I'd race the elite division, and have to sadly sit on the sidelines while the mile and the strong are going on, which I think I could have done maybe even better in. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's DEKA. So how would that change? You mentioned that your preparation for it is very different from what one's ideal preparation for it would be. Would the rest of us who don't have Hyrox World Championship 2026 as a main goal just do more DEKA specific workouts, buy ourselves one of those RAM things and do some more specific training for that? Is that the difference?
Yeah, I think more VO2 max training. Your runs would be, you'd add in some shorter, quicker runs, because you're going to be wanting to be running anywhere from 3 to 5K pace during these runs here, whereas in a Hyrox, you'd be focusing more half marathon pace, so it's very, very different. The stations as well, you need very skill-specific work for the step-overs, for the med balls. It depends on what level you're competing at. If you're competing on an elite level, you need a lot more specific movement-specific work than I've been doing. If you're just looking to you're just generally trying to get better at DEKA, then yeah, I'd focus on maybe shorter, higher-end running, so sort of quicker running and more station-specific work, for sure.
Okay, thank you. So, nutrition segment this week is going to be back to you for a main course. What do you have for us?
Yes. This one I sort of got off of a recipe I saw on TikTok that looked really good and just adapted it to make it diet friendly. So it's a nacho bowl, with the chips being sort of the key differentiator here. So on TikTok, there's a bunch of these sort of 20% fat mints with Doritos. How we adjust that is getting 5% mints and getting sort of sweet potato or lentil-based protein chips as the base. What you do is you get a bag of these lentil or sort of lower calorie chips. You cut the top off of it lengthways or horizontally, so then you can fill it inside with 125 grams of 5% beef, half a can of sweet corn, half an avocado smashed up with half an onion, finely diced for some guacamole, maybe add some lime juice in there. You'd have 1 cup of cut shredded lettuce, and you'd add around 25 grams of some light mayo for 475 calories, 20 grams of protein, 40 grams of carbs, and 15 grams of fat.
Cool. And you're eating this out of a bag of crisps?
Out of a bag of crisps. Yes, yeah. For me, I doubled the ingredients and I emptied it all into a container because it doesn't fit in the bag. But for people who do not eat 4,000 to 4,500 calories a day and want to keep the meal to around 500 calories, those are the proportions that I'd recommend.
I think many of us eat 4,000 to 4,500 calories a day. It's just that we don't burn them. Okay, so great. And so Jude's nacho bowl, 1,000 calories if you're doing it his way, just under 500 if you're a normal person. Yeah. Sounds great. Okay, yeah. That just about wraps it up for this week. So we're going to finish with a quote of the week. And as usual, I want to get Jude's response to these timeless words of wisdom, which this week come from the US Marine Corps, one of whose slogans is, "Pain is weakness leaving the body." How helpful or true is that, Jude? Pain is weakness leaving the body, say the US Marines.
I mean, I guess if we have to take it seriously, you can see logic in it. So like the more you sort of expose yourself to pain and the more you put yourself through really hard periods, or so for example in hard training, if you get used to being in that sort of pain cave, is weakness that's leaving your body. So you get more used to it, you become more adaptive, it becomes more natural. So I think, there's definitely truth to that. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So if we say that the pain is the pain from exertion rather than the pain of injury, then great. Okay, so next week we'll be having our first our first event review, combined with more sport introductions after Jude goes to the East Midlands DEKA event, hoping to qualify for December's World Championships. Thanks again very much for listening. Please do subscribe and leave us a review on Apple or Spotify or over on YouTube, and we'll see you again next week. I've been Paul Reynolds.
I've been Jude Reynolds.
Thank you very much and goodbye.
See ya.